Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel today. Today, we're going to talk about what I think is the most important document when you're designing control systems, and that is the control narrative. Boo! We don't like documents. We don't like process. We just want to engineer over here. Look, I completely get it, right? Documentation is not always fun. It's not always the most exciting thing to do when you're an engineer. However, doing this one document will make your life a whole lot easier down the road when you're actually programming your devices. So, what exactly is a control narrative? The best way you can think about it is it's like a story for your automated process. It's a very detailed description of how all your devices should work under certain conditions. It's kind of like a play, right? It's your script for the play, and your control narrative tells the actors or your machines and your sensors, your output devices, how they should behave. Okay, so why do we need one, right? Why can't we just have some meetings and talk about how it works and then go tell the engineer, hey, I need you to go program the device like this? Well, a lot of times systems are a little more complicated than that. Not everyone can keep that in their head. So there are four groups of people that benefit from a really good and well written control narrative. The first group is management. Typically, managers aren't going to dive into PLC code or any sort of logic to understand how a site works, right? If you have a well-written control narrative, they can just open up the Word doc and see exactly how a specific pump, valve, motor is supposed to operate. The second group is engineers, and this is where I use it the most. For me, up front, I make sure I have a very detailed control narrative because in the back end, it also becomes my testing plan, right? So it becomes my checkout document to make sure that I've met all the requirements of the customer and that the facility is operating how they want it to. The third group of people is the operators. So it lets the remote operators, local operators understand how that facility works, right? If the pressure gets to a certain level, this valve will shut. Um, Maybe you need have an open permissive to where you can't start a pump or open a valve unless these four requirements are met, right? The fourth group of people is the maintenance staff. So as things break, and as they need to do maintenance on, let's say, pressure transmitter or whatever it might be in the field, they need to know that if they take that pressure transmitter down, it could affect something else in the field. So it could shut a valve on a flowing line. So, what's actually inside of a control narrative? On the screen here, I actually have a template that I like to use for my control narratives when developing for projects. Sometimes we can have a control narrative that's project specific, or we can just have one for a whole facility. In this case, this one is project specific. So we just have a little title block up in the top right corner. It has a project, the revision number, and the date revised. Typically, you get feedback on it from your client on what needs to change. That's why I put a revision number here. Um, some people start with the title page. I just jump right into the table of contents. So, how I like to set this up is I'll start with a scope of work and then I'll jump into references. So these are other documents that might need to be referenced. Typically, they help with checkout or with testing at the end. And then I do my sections by system. So in this case, we'll update our table. So we just have system one. And then, so this could be like a pump unit that has inlet and outlet valves, maybe some pressure transmitters, suction and discharge, maybe a control valve, right? That would all be in that system. Sometimes for smaller facilities, you may only have one system, uh, but sometimes you might have, we'll call it system one right here, which would just be an MOV with a couple pressure transmitters and then a UPS, right? So those are two kind of different systems that can interact, but I like to break it down that way so they're tested independently. So scrolling down, so in the scope of work, so like I said, in this example, we just have a MOV that's being installed on Rainbow Road pipeline. So it'll include the following. So this kind of outlines what all devices are being changed with this project. Or like I said, if it's a whole facility, how do each of the devices work? So this will be PLC programming, HMI programming, ProSoft configuration, your SCADA interface, right? Whatever it might be, you kind of outline, hey, what's the scope of this control narrative and what all will be affected at the facility. The next section is references. In this section, we just outline the documents that will assist in the testing. Like I said earlier, as an engineer, I love the control narrative because it just funnels right into my checkout and testing document. So I don't have to recreate any sort of documents or spreadsheets or anything like that. We have IFC drawings, cause and effects diagrams, which are optional. And I put optional, and I'll dive into why here in a second. IO lists, just for checking the physical IO, and then any data maps that you might have for communicating from PLC to PLC or maybe PLC to another device. Okay, if we dive in a little more, so I break my systems into 3 sections. So we have instruments. So these are your input devices. These will be pressure transmitters, temperature transmitters, right? There's no action. They're just reading data into the system. The second section is logic generated. I'll go over this more in depth, but essentially, you might have a pressure transmitter high alarm plus a valve status plus third party data that all needs to trigger an event or trigger action in a control element, right? So that goes here in logic generated. And then the control elements are output elements, right? So these are valves, pumps, anything that affects the hydraulics of the system. So in instruments, so here we have 2 pressure transmitters, PT101A, PT101B. Typically, we have indication on both local HMI and then also SCADA. And then we have alarms. So we'll have a low alarm, a high, and a high alarm. Not all of these will always be used, and not all of these will always be indicated everywhere. However, call them out, and they each have their own row again. So at the end of the project, when we're in the field and testing, we agreed upon these values, and that's what I'll test later. So this is kind of my master testing document towards the end. Same exact structure for my second pressure transmitter. We'll have indication, and then we'll have alarms. And it's a pretty simple system. So those are our inputs. For our outputs, okay, so we'll have an open valve permissive, right? So this will be our differential pressure across the valve must be less than 25 psi, and our valve status must be closed. So that'll generate a valve permissive. As you can see in our control element, in our output action, in order to be able to open the valve, we must have an HMI command or a SCADA command plus that open valve permissive. So it essentially becomes another input to our control element. Moving back up. So again, we have MOV 101 that also has status that we have to worry about, right? So we've got open status, closed status, and transit status, and these all need to be displayed on either HMI or SCADA in this case. Alarms, maybe we have a fail to close and a fail to open, right? And you might be able to define those a little bit more if you want to in here. And then again, we have our output action. So what can close this valve? An HMI command, a SCADA command, plus a high alarm on one of our pressure transmitters so we don't overpressure our pipeline in this case. And then we can also stop the valve. I'll add these right now. HMI command or SCADA command. As I mentioned earlier, we also maybe have another system, a UPS system, right? So this allows the UPS system to kind of be tested independently. There are some signals that will go over to our PLC, and we can include those under the instruments tab, maybe like a low DC alarm or high DC alarm or battery fail, right? And we can include those in here. Again, in software development, I may be butchering this term, but I think there's something called testing driven development, where before you start developing anything, you think about what do you need to test in the end. That's how I use a control narrative for is what am I going to test in the end, document it, and then when I'm out in the field, make sure I sign off on all these items in this list. One more thing to point out on the logic generated items. This is where I think control narratives beat cause and effect diagram because A, cause and effect diagrams can be really big. The little squares are really tiny, so it might be hard to see the inputs and outputs. And they also, if you have a chain of inputs that generate an output that is used maybe to control a valve, it's hard to depict that when you have inputs on your rows and outputs on your columns, right? How do you notate that multiple devices actually close a certain valve? If you just write it down in words, there's no confusion. You don't need any notes, and you don't need a microscope to read the document. The last thing I'll add when it comes to the control narrative structure or template is to be flexible. A lot of times your clients may already have one created that you're just modifying or making changes, or maybe they have a structure that they like, right? Structure doesn't really matter that much. I showed you mine because that's what works best for me in my head, but you may have to be a little bit flexible to accommodate some of the client's needs and what their managers, operators, and maintenance crew are used to looking at. Again, I'll reiterate. I believe the control narrative is the most important document when designing and implementing control processes in industrial systems. It ensures everything runs smoothly, efficiently, and most importantly, safely. The other major benefit is it makes sure that all parties from management, operators, maintenance, engineers are on the same page with how this is going to operate. The last thing you want as an engineer is to go to a site, program a PLC, leave the site, and the facility have something not operate how they want it to. By understanding what the control narrative is and what's inside of it, everyone can understand their facility without having to know anything about programming a PLC. Do you have any questions about control narratives or industrial automation in general? If so, drop a comment below to get the conversation started. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.